start on item 267 today. Giving continuation to chapter 24 that deals with identity of spirits. And at this part of the chapter, we're trying to distinguish between good and, he says, evil spirits. We try to run away from the word evil. Will I rather say suffering or unevolved spirits, to eliminate the idea that evil is perpetually evil and reinforce the idea that we are all in the pathway of progress. Some of us are ahead, that we can go good spirits, or some of us are still far behind, that we can say unevolved or ignorant spirits. And just to catch up what I've studied so far, the very beginning of the chapter, we discussed the identity of spirits. We covered the ability of spirits to, when they are more evolved, to use someone else's name in the name of goodness. And when we are still ignorant, that should not be the case. That would be a fraud. We covered last week the necessity that we have to take in order to protect ourselves, in order to protect the doctrine, to be really careful, to be really reasonable, to truly evaluate and study everything that comes from the spiritual world. This is not new. John the Evangelist has already warned us about that, telling us that not all the spirits comes from God, that you must check if the spirits are from God. Of course, is an expression, using from God mean goodness in this case. Unfortunately, there are some spiritualist groups that claims that only good evolved spirits are able to communicate. And just by doing some study, some research on the communication that had been received, they can see that that's not a fact. That whatever we are right now with the physical body, it's pretty much what we are going to be without the physical body. No plus, minus. The changes that will naturally occur when we are free from the limitations of the physical body. So all the messages that we receive from the spirituals must be carefully studied to make sure that they are good for use, or they should not be considered. So Kardec puts, starting with 267, a set of criteria, so to say, that summarizes how we can better differentiate more evolved from ignorant spirits. Who's doing the reading today?
Yes, I will, Elmo.
That's all right, thank you.
All right. Okay, so it's 267.
Mm-hmm.
Let us sum up the means for recognizing the quality of spirits in the following principles. 1. There is no other criterion for discerning the worth of spirits except common sense. Any other formula toward this end, even if given by spirits themselves, is absurd and could not have come from highly evolved spirits.
There is not even need to try to speaking even more what he's saying over here, right? Accept common sense as the only means that we can to make an evaluation of the level of moral involvement of an spirit. And perhaps even intellectual in some cases, as long as we are versed in the topic that the Spirit's talking about. But definitely moral. And again, this applies to mediumship because it's the medium's book, the story of mediumship, but the same can be applied to different more evolved spirit to less evolved spirits. It's important to note that they say over here that even if other spirits themselves, say that there are formulas to differentiate good from not good, outside of common sense, is absurd and can only have come from less evolved spirits. This is very important because there is no ritual, there is no formula, there is nothing except the use of reason and a very careful analysis, preferably in group, because in group we can avoid our own prejudices, because we all have ours. But putting this study in a group, we are less likely to allow our prejudices to overpower because each one of us have our different ones. Okay. Any questions, any comments, go ahead and ask. Otherwise, you just can go ahead and keep reading.
Okay. Number 2, we judge spirits by their language and actions. Spirits' actions involve the sentiments they inspire and the counsels they provide. 3, accepting the fact that good spirits can only say and do what is good, then everything that is bad cannot have come from a good spirit.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So language and actions. Okay. Language card I'm going to discuss. I had what language is, and thank God, because I had difficulty trying to explain what Kardec means by language, but he will explain here soon. But what does it mean by action? And explain right then and there. Involves sentiments that inspire and counsels they provide. So it is in their words, is in their suggestion. That's what he means by actions. How do they use the instrument at their hands, in the case mediums, to inspire us, to guide us, to lead us to one direction or another. If it leads us to a good direction, it's a more evolved spirit. If it leads us to something not so dignified, it's a less evolved spirit. 3 is very important to see here that accept the fact that good spirits can only say and do what's good, then everything that is bad cannot come from a good spirit. That's easy to understand. But I just like to suggest that the opposite may not necessarily be a fact. The reverse may not necessarily be true, meaning that an ignorant spirit may provide good things, may provide good lessons. We can learn from more ignorant spirits as well. We can learn from their experiences. We can learn at least what not to do, what not to say, okay? And very often, unfortunately, we can use them as a mirror. And very often we do. We recognize our fallacies, our problems, our vices, by listening, by reading to them. So we have a lot to learn, even for more, for less of the spirit. But whatever comes from a good spirit is good.
Mm.
But not necessarily whatever comes from an ignorant spirit is bad. It may perhaps in some circumstances be also good. Okay?
Mm. Okay. Number 4. The language of high order spirits is always noble, elevated, and dignified without any mixture of trivialness. They state everything simple and modestly. They never boast and they never make a show of their wisdom or their position among the other spirits. The language of low order or ordinary spirits always contains some reflection of the human passions. Every expression that reveals low character, self importance, arrogance, boastfulness, or sarcasm is a sure sign of inferiority and deceitfulness if the spirit presents itself using a respectful and venerated name.
One of the things that we don't see when you read messages from elevated spirits, or perhaps you don't see it commonly in very, very rare situations, is the first person of the singular. Very rarely we see I. I this, I do this, I do that. We see we, which is understandable by we already had studied before. Once you leave that level of evolvement, of more evolvement, when you're getting close to the apex of the pyramid, we become so much alike, right? Because there can't be that much variation in perfection that we is very properly used. But they have no need to put themselves as the object of discussion. On the contrary, all the messages is with the intention of leads us. They put us as the subject of attention. So very often when you read the messages, they have a universal content. It's applied for each one of us. Very often you read and say, oh, this is for me. And everyone will be saying the same thing. Oh, this is for me, because they have this universal appeal in general. And very often they are almost like absent of the context of the message.
Mm.
They have no need to boast themselves. There is absolutely no arrogance, and that you can just go through all the books and all the lessons, start reading, you can see that it's right then and there. So a red flag. There is always exception to the rules. Of course, somebody may be able to bring one here, one there. But if you see a message that starts with I do this, I suggest this. I just remember seeing, I couldn't remember the names, but in the Gospel according to Spiritism, some of the spirits recalls their own experiences in the spiritual world. But it's rare. It's very rare. So there may be a case in which a spirit, in order to bring a lesson, you use their own experience as an example or as to lead us to better understand something, but it's not common. If you see that the message is full of eyes or full of arrogance, or the spirit's putting himself as he or she, I am above of you, I have learned this, and now I'm going to teach to you, you start to suspect. It's already some kind of red flag that have to be carefully analyzed.
Okay.
Just one more thing, simplicity and modesty, that unfortunately we kind of confuse these two words, simplicity and modesty, with lack of a eloquent, proper lexicon. So we will use difficult, long, big words that require us to have a dictionary by our side. And I do think that every time you're going to read a higher spirit, we should have a dictionary by the side, and we should make use of that dictionary if you want to understand it.
Yeah.
Because they have it, they will pass it to us. And as Joan Angela says, as in a position of teacher, she cannot lower herself to our level. We need to elevate ourselves to her level. So simplicity and modesty doesn't mean vulgarity, doesn't mean that we're going to bring things to such a level of simplicity that becomes just a banality. If you conquer the ability to speak and to write with a certain degree of eloquence, why would you degrade your ability of speaking? Even when you see May writing for children, you see the eloquence right there, but it is at the level of a child to understand. But you see the great quality of the writing, even if it's addressed and it's proper for youngsters to read.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Number 5. We must not judge spirits according to the formality and correctness of their style, but must probe their inner character and analyze their words, coolly and maturely weighing them unhesitatingly. Any absence of logic, reason, and prudence can leave no doubt as to a spirit's origin, whatever may be the name it uses to adore itself.
Can go to the next one.
Okay, number 6. The language of elevated spirits is always identical, if not in form, at least in substance. Their ideas are the same, whatever may be the time and place. Their communications might be more developed or less so, depending on the circumstances, needs, or ease of communicating, but they will never be contradictory. If two communications under the same name contradict each other, one of them is obviously
Apocryphal.
apocryphal, right? Thank you. The true one will be the one in which nothing belies the known character of the personage. Between two communications signed by St. Vincent de Paul, for example, one proclaiming unity and charity, and the other tending to sow disharmony, no sane person could possibly be deceived.
Okay, so number 5, character suggests don't be fooled by big, long words. Concentrate on the content of the text. We concentrate on what the message being brought to us. It may be difficult. Again, it may require to have a dictionary. It may require to read it 2 or 3 times. You'll be able to understand it. And that comes from the fact that they have the tremendous, more about this tremendous ability of synthesis, and they have a very vast lexicon. They are able to use one word that fits specifically to what they want to say. And for most of us, you would have to use 5, 6 words for the same thing. They're extremely concise and precise. That's in the simplicity of the writing. And once we start reading a passage, there is a full of big, long discussions, big words, but you don't find any message. It's full of nothing, so to say. You know, cannot become from evolve the spirit. On the contrary, the more evolve the spirit is being very short, very concise, but full of um, of messages for us to learn from there. And again, going back that the language elevates spirits, in the plural, right, is always identical. If it's not in form, at least in substance. Again, once we start to move up in that pyramid and you're getting close to the apex, you become to be very much alike because you can't not have a tremendous variation in perfection. So it becomes very alike. If you read more about the spirits, they all gonna have pretty much the same content, the same substance. They want to bring to us is the moral laws, and the moral laws are one and only. The moral laws are always identical. You cannot have one thing's the moral law is this, other thing something else. Once you learn what it is, that's what it is, and it is the same for everyone. So the content will be pretty much identical, even if the presentation of it will vary. One of the problems that spirits may find, what about the spirits, is the instrument that they're using, right? So see, the communication might be more developed or less so, depending on the circumstances, needs, or easy of communicating. So what is the circumstances? So, or how is the kind of the energies in that specific place and time? What are the instruments available for that spirit to be able to fully express it? Okay. Go back to the pianist who is an excellent player but does not have the best instrument at their hands. He or she will do the best with whatever they have. The same case of more evolved spirit. They're not going to abandon us because the instrument's not the best. They will use the best available and do the best they can do with it. So that could create a little difficulty in spirits being able to fully express themselves.
Mm.
And again, no contradiction, of course. There cannot be contradiction. The laws are just one. Perfection is just one. And if you find the same spirit saying A on one side and A minus or A plus on the other side, one of the sides are not true.
Mm.
And then we have to do the work of deciphering which one should be kept, which one should be trashed. See, and the higher order spirits are not really concerned with misuse of the names. It's up to us to make that distinguish. When Chico Xavier asked André Luiz about some messages that some of the mediums received, then it was signed André Luiz, and if it was him, his answer was, there are many André Luiz out there. Did not say you are right, you are wrong. You do the work. It's our job to do the work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was talking with a friend of mine, Angelica, the other day.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was talking with a friend of mine, Angelica, the other day.
Okay.
about reading books and everything, and he was sharing his point of view of he, he sticks with the Bible for few reasons now. First, he don't fully understand the Bible, so why would he mess around with different books and different things that might
When he said that, or you're saying that?
no, he said that
Okay.
that might take him away from the real truth, because he trusts in the Bible.
Mm.
And it got me thinking, because we have the codification that it was inspired by the spirit of truth, and some believe that that spirit is Jesus himself. And one could also think, why would I mess with those messages and everything else if I don't fully understand the codification and taking a chance with these things that might derail me from the path? So in a sense, I kind of look in your thought. You think all this messaging, psychography, psychophony is an opportunity for us to put into practice everything that we are trying to learn from the codification, and that's how we can measure if we are improving and really grasping what we are learning.
We have the Bible, right? I don't know what he means by the Bible. If it's usually they'll mention the second, the first and the second Revelation. So some people use Old and New Testaments. According to what's his name again? What is the name of the Indian guy? Oh, I don't remember his name. Son. Even if all the scriptures, if everything were lost, and the only thing that was saved was the Sermon of the Mountain, still nothing would be lost, right? So trash everything else to skip the Sermon of the Mountain.
Gandhi.
Don't need anything else. Gandhi, yes, thank you, Gandhi. But we don't do that. It's my personal belief that all that we experience through Spiritist doctrine and for all true, real institutions that seek to reveal the truth and guide us to elevate ourselves does exactly that. It tries to get us to understand the Sermon of the Mountain and gain the strength, the courage to practice. All that's done, the whole doctrine, the Erasmus says right in this book, the only reason for them to use mediumship is to upgrade humankind morally, not even intellectually, morally. So all that we're doing here is to gain the understanding of all the moral laws expressed in that Sermon of the Mountain, and gain the ability to practice, to transform ourselves into Christs. Now, can one do only by reading the Sermon of the Mountain? Good for him or her. Most of us needs more. Most of us needs a lot of breaking down of all those teachings that is so rich and so vast that requires us to look at the same thing from many different angles and many different spirits, many different institutions that are truly guided at upgrading us will present different angles for us to perhaps understand a little bit better, perhaps to become stronger in one or another point of view will help us to eliminate one or another vice. Each one of us come from different backgrounds, even each one of us come from different experiences, that being exposed to many different lessons, or yet the same lesson presented in many different ways, because again, there is just one truth, there is just one law. So the lessons, if it's a true guided towards goodness, will be one and only, will be presented in many different angles, is to our benefit. So if someone believes that suffice for them to read the Bible, good. I'm not smart enough. And if I read something that I do not understand, I have to read something else to help me better understand what I want to understand. So all those lessons, this hard work of the spirits is to help us to gain a full understanding of the Sermon of the Mountain, but not an understanding in the intellectual way, but understanding the intelligence of the heart so we can live those lessons. We can become truly practitioners of those lessons with the facility that we can walk forward. If you one can do just by reading that book, that sermon, good for them. If one is able to do just by reading the Bible, excellent. Me and my ignorance, I need a lot more help than that.
But don't you think, like, for example, on I don't know, maybe let's say the book Liberation. When I remember there's a part of where after Gubbio convinced Saldanha to come to be one of the good guys, and then he started to speak with André Luiz, and André was like kind of a surprised, let's put that way, with the way that Saldanha was talking, and it completely changed, and he couldn't help himself, like, wow, who could have thought that this guy was doing what he was doing. And even André Luiz in the spiritual realm, seeing everything, and was hard to make an evaluation after everything that he experienced. And so for us here, in order to to evaluate these messages and the work and everything, even without understanding the codification, it does put us on sometimes on for lack of a better word, like pressure, because we don't fully understand. Sometimes we are afraid of made a mistake. As you guys always teach us, it's better to deny 10 truths than let one lie pass it on. It really becomes and now I'm talking about my perception. It really becomes hard to navigate and discern what is good, what is bad, when you get to the level where it's above your pay grade. It's kind of okay, I need some help here, and in order to make sense of everything.
I don't know what it seems to me that you are saying everything that I just said, that you need help.
Yeah,
So
but I was saying that
when you seek to progress, to enlighten ourselves, we need those who know more than us to guide us, the same way that child needs parenting, we, like Charles, you need those who know more than us to guide us, to provide us, and accept the risks of making mistakes. Only people who try makes mistakes.
And what I was
You're
trying to
never
say,
gonna complication doing something unless you try to do something. You're never gonna make a mistake if you don't do something.
Mm.
What is the alternative? Bury your head on the sand? To me, you are saying the same thing that I'm just saying here, that the lessons are there for us. Those who feel the need of using, they are available to us. Those who don't feel that they don't need it, or that they're scared, don't use it. But fear just perpetuates ignorance, especially fears of mistake. It just perpetuates ignorance. It's like the talent of, or the parable of the talents. One got 5, one got 2, one got 1, and one got 1, gets afraid of making mistake and buries it, and is the one that gets in trouble for it.
Reading yesterday on one of the Spiritist reviews, when they asked Kardec what's the biggest danger from Spiritism to Spiritism comes from the outside, the enemies, and Kardec says, no, it does not. It comes from inside. It comes from the ones that are inside Spiritism and then do not dedicate themselves to study and learn, and end up spreading half-truths for lack of understanding, or adapting Spiritism to their own personal interests instead of adapting themselves to Spiritism. I thought it was very interesting, and it's a little bit of a contribution to the discussion here.
I think we all go through that with what you just said. That the come puts in and say, "Oh my God, what am I getting into here?" And then you do a little bit of self-analysis, and you look back and say, "Well, this is leading to something good, because if I look back, I know that now it's better, or I am now better than what I was before." It's maybe scary sometimes. Spirituals has this thing. I have in my own family, people are better than spirituals because they are, you have the ball in your court, and now you're a decision maker of everything that you do or don't do. It's frightening for some people, and institutions that have someone dictating to you what's right and what's wrong, what to do, what not to do, it's more comfortable for some people. But I think we are here because it does not fit us anymore. And yeah, when you don't have somebody telling you this is good, this is not good, this is evil, this is not evil, this is a sin, this is a blessing, when you have to make these decisions yourself, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna take wrong path. And that is the importance of listening to all those lessons, or to having all those books to help us to avoid taking those wrong paths. And when you do, have a guidance to return to the right path.
yeah, I guess this is a personal journey, because I remember I used to think that I'm not gonna even touch one of the Angeles books because way above. And I remember, I don't know if it was João or Julio, you mentioned that that would be a disfavor, right? Because you're, even though you don't understand, but you're planting the seeds to force yourself to work, to measure yourself in a good way, measure in a good way where you need to be, how much effort you need to do. And I'm kind of understanding better with your explanation the need of all this material in different ways, because that will touch people's in different way, because we have different needs. It's like mediumship, mediumship connect a lot of dots for myself, especially psychography, but again, always in need of help. Don't trust myself. But yeah, I understand what you explained. Thank you.
Renato, I have a friend that recently found out about Spiritism and started studying Spiritism and got fascinated by a lot of information he received. He never heard of Spiritism before. He's Brazilian, but was raised here in the US. And then at a certain point, he always been fascinated with UFOs and ETs and things like that. And now he completely deviated from Spiritism, and he's only watching lecture of pseudo Spiritists talking about UFOs and ETs and that they have nothing to do with Spiritism. But that's his journey. That's what he likes. What can we do? Your friend that likes to read the gospel and the gospel is everything. It's their journey. Good for them. They stay with the gospel if that helps you, right? I think that's what we find out, is that we have to allow people to find their own path. There is not much we can do to force them to choose the path we think is best for them. It may be not. Maybe we think it's best for them, but it's not.
And to think of reading complex, difficult topics, and again, if things are difficult, it's because it is difficult. And you can't try to sugarcoat it, or running the risk of not presenting the truth. It is hard, it is hard. You can't simplify calculus. It's difficult for, if people think calculus is hard, I do. You can't simplify it. You can't present simple algebra and call it calculus. No, calculus is complex, very complex. And if it's hard, it is hard. Now, when you get something, if I got something to read that it's hard, one Angeles or anything else, I will grasp what I am capable to grasp at my level. And someone more evolved intellectually and morally will be able to grasp a lot more on the same reading. Why do you read the Spirit's book time after time? You finish you go from introduction to end, and we start again and again and again. And I tell you the truth, it's almost like reading the book for the first time. Each time you learn something different. Because even as a Q&A, it seems to be simple and easy. It's not. It's complex. It's our entire life in that book.
I learned so much about sleep and dreams today, things that I didn't know by preparing for the studies. And we did this how many times? 5 or 6?
Right. It's like you're doing for the first time.
Yeah.
Because now we are able to perceive angles that we could not perceive before. And there's that help that is available to us to understand everything that is in the Sermon of the Mountain. Because there is just one truth. There is just one set of laws. So the lessons are pretty much, as you just read, identical. They're just being presented with many different angles, so each one of us can grasp this angle and then get that angle. And perhaps when we sit together, we give them a little bit of your angle, or I give a little bit of my angle, and both of us gain of studying that same book or that same message. So I don't know, I think that is very valuable to have all those messages for us, and the more the merrier. If I had only the Bible, probably would not be too enthusiastic about Christ at all.
Thank you.
Continue, Almo. Number
Yes,
7.
please.
Okay, number 7. Good spirits only say what they know, keeping quiet or confessing their ignorance about what they do not know. Evil spirits confidently talk about anything without any regard for the truth. Every notorious scientific heresy, every principle that offends common sense reveals fraud, even though the spirit presents itself as being enlightened.
It's inconceivable that someone who is free of pride would not be able to say, I don't know.
Mm.
If you are around someone who knows everything about everything, you better be very careful. You likely listening to a bunch of falsehoods or little pieces of truth that cannot follow up with anything more. Moreover, of the spirit, they have no pride, so they have no problem saying, I don't know. They have nothing to prove. They have no need to convince us of anything. And that's another big red flag that you see right then and there. If a message is someone trying to prove something to you, trying to convince you of something, even if it's of something good, you will start to doubt, because it is someone trying to reason for you, trying to think for you, trying to make you basically to become a subject of that person or that spirit, in a sense that you listen to me, I know better, you just follow me. You're not gonna hear that from whatever of the spirit. You present a topic with a very universal appeal, and it leads up to you the ability of reasoning, again, the ability to grasp as much as you can grasp with your present more intellectual stage. And if you have good will, you have good intention, you grasp what you can from that, but not because someone told you to do so, someone guaranteed to you that that is the truth and period. That's, again, is a red flag right there and there. And be careful with, little knowledge is a dangerous thing. It's a problem of we ignorant spirits, that we have a problem of saying, no, I don't know, or I have very limited information. That's the only thing that I know. I can go beyond this point. No, we in our ignorance is trying to extrapolate, is trying to answer the questions and be able to go beyond what you are really able to do so. More above the spirits, more humble the spirits, you stop right there. I can only go up to this point. That's all I know. It's very, very important. Again, they have no need to try to convince us of anything. If someone is trying to convince us of something, be careful. Okay.
Okay. Number 8. Frivolous spirits are further recognizable by their willingness to foretell the future and to specify the dates of physical events that we should not know about. Good spirits may enable us to have a presentiment of future things when such knowledge is useful, but they are never precise as to dates. Any proclamation of an event to happen at a specific time is an indication of fraud.
So that's a given.
Mm.
That's a given. The spirit is going to present what's going to happen to the future, giving you dates and times. In general, again, there's always exception to the rules. I don't know an exception to this particular one, but there is always an exception to rules. So, but in general, be very careful. Be very, very careful. Again, I'm the ones who believe that there is time. In order for someone to know the future, want to review what's going to happen to futures, that is only possible if time does not exist, and then one can just look ahead and see the future. But if there is a future, then we cannot see what has not happened yet. But we can have very reasonable, very intelligent prediction based on probabilities of what's going to happen next, right? Depending on what happened, the volcanic eruption at the ocean somewhere else, you can predict there will be a tsunami that will hit land in some hours, right? We can do that. Our science can do that. We'll be able to note that there was a earthquake or volcanic eruption somewhere in the ocean, underwater, and that will generate a huge, huge wave that is going to go a tsunami, and they can predict the time that you travel from point A to point B and reach land. This is science. So in the spiritual world, they have a much more advanced science that they'll be able to predict things with a very high degree of timing and date, but it cannot be written in stone. And if there is also, they usually not reveal it to us. When you read Nosula, they were preparing for the first war, right? Way before it happened. The second year was between the wars. I'm sorry. Yes, they were preparing for the war that was inevitable. They say in the book it is inevitable. They are preparing for it, but it's not in black magic. It's in science. They will be able to predict. So they are able to tell us, not seeing the future, but having the intelligence to look the present, understanding the past, to predict the future. That's not seeing the future. It's predicting the future. It's different. For some spirits, more evolved spirits, you have the ability to predict the future with a very high degree of certainty, right? But it is still not an absolutely given, because otherwise there would be determinism. And determinism and does not, there is some determinism in spiritism, but it's very minimal. And that would not happen. So if the spirit's coming in and telling things with time and date, you highly suspect of someone trying to pull our legs.
Okay. Number 9.
The last one.
Okay. Highly evolved spirits express themselves simply without prolixity. Their style is concise without excluding poetry in their ideas and expressions. They are clear and intelligible to everyone and do not require effort to be understood. They possess the art of saying much in a few words, for every word has its just use. Less evolved or pseudo-scholar spirits, on the other hand, hide the emptiness of their ideas behind pompous phrases. Their language is always pretentious, ridiculous, or obscure by dint of appearing profound.
Yeah, I think I already covered that when talking about the language of spirits. But the spirits, what about the spirit has again that tremendous ability of synthesis, of saying a lot in very few words. There is no prolixity in the writing and the speaking, which is good, makes it simple, but at the same time, by having what Kardec says, they possess the art of saying much in a few words. For every word has its just use. And here's what I say that now if you want to read those guys, you better have a dictionary. You have to make sure that you understand each word because every word has its use. And if you miss one word because you just can't be bothered with a dictionary, you may miss the whole thing because that word may be extremely important. That word is a word that perhaps for us would take us a whole paragraph and they can put in one single word. So it may make it a little more difficult to us if we are lazy, if we don't you make sure that we go to the dictionary and make sure that we understand that word that we missed. That's why I like the idea of reading a book first and then study the book second. You read like a little story and then you go back and you study it. And when you study it, then you're gonna have to use a dictionary. Then you have to be, unless you just want to read as a little romance. But if you want really to understand, you have to study it. And I think our time is up. We're done. Any questions here? Okay, so right, you make a final prayer, please.
Of course. To our spirit benefactors, our guardian angels, who have come here in participating in our teaching and learning, giving them thanks for the opportunity again to be here in continuous studies, the study of the identity of spirits, distinguishing between the good and the evil spirits, which is most important for us to understand mediumship, understand what is the goal for this, to learn, to prosper, and to understand, most important, as we continue our lives here in this physical world. We give thanks, dear Lord, for all that are in hospitals and hospices who are slowly, hopefully, surely, get better each day. But with prayers, we need to continue. We pray for those that are in hospitals and hospices, those that have lost so much difficulties and finances, for all that have gone to the spiritual world, families that stay behind. May we continue, dear Lord, to pray and giving them the strength and courage, and most important, to have faith that our God is with us. God is the good God who knows our needs. So let's continue with our hearts open through our studies, throughout the week, our prayers, and keep ourselves focused in what is good, continuing to evolve and helping each and every one of us. We thank our teachers. We thank the United States Spiritist Federation, United States Spiritist Councils, all that have contributed so much to our learning. We are so grateful and we thank you, dear Lord. And we continue throughout the week studying and return again next week. And with that in mind, we ask permission, dear Lord, to close our meeting tonight. So be it.